On July 19th, 1977, the world teacher, the Christ Maitreya, head of the spiritual hierarchy, emerged from his ancient retreat and is now in the modern world. With his disciples, the masters of the wisdom, he will inaugurate the new age of synthesis and brotherhood.
Good morning and welcome to our World Teacher programme on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM, presented by Teresa and David on behalf of Share International New Zealand.
Today we'll start our programme with a review by Maureen Girard, a retired English professor based in California, USA, of Benjamin Creme's first book, The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. It featured in the January-February 2013 double issue of Share International magazine.
Maureen Girard begins, "When people hear the claim that someone called Maitreya, a new world teacher as powerful as the Buddha or the Christ, is in our midst, most are curious about the source, the rationale and the evidence. For 40 years, Benjamin Creme, the main source for this revelation, has patiently and consistently provided the rationale and pointed out mounting evidence that such a remarkable being is indeed among us."
In The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom, first published in the UK in 1979 and in the USA in 1980, Creme narrates the events that led to his pivotal role in Maitreya's emergence. In addition, he articulates the principles that underlie the emergence and surveys transformations that have taken place, some that are underway and others yet to be realized.
Benjamin Creme begins by explaining how a perfectly sensible, practical family man and dedicated artist could set aside his life's work in favour of a very different task, one that would consume most of his waking hours and subject him to a wide variety of reactions from others.
He relates a series of extraordinary childhood experiences, including the capacity to actually see air and wind, not just their effects, until he was told by grown-ups that such a thing was impossible. So he stopped noticing, but he did not forget.
As a young man, he pursued experiments designed to recapture and understand those early experiences in a systematic and scientific manner. In his middle years, he experimented with methods to focus his mind and improve his concentration during meditation. And throughout, he read widely, especially the great Eastern philosophers of the 20th century. A partial list can be found at the end of the book. Although he didn't realize it at the time, Creme was systematically preparing himself for his future role as a spokesperson for Maitreya, the emerging world teacher.
In the late 1950s, he was telepathically contacted for the first time by his master, who he later learned was a senior member of the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. The master gave him a series of transmitted messages containing advice, guidance or spiritual instruction, which he recorded. Creme's master also served as a liaison with the Space Brothers, the occupants of the UFOs with whom he worked for some years.
Then, in 1959, Creme writes, he was given a discourse on his reappearance by Maitreya the Christ, head of our planetary hierarchy, and the startling news that he would have a part in the plan. It was only then that Benjamin Creme realized these heady messages came with strings. They caused, he writes, a complete upset to my thinking.
But there was more unsettling news from the master. The time is coming when you will be expected to act and affirm his coming. Curiously, Creme was at that point granted a 17-year reprieve, during which, one guesses, he hoped the teachers would forget about him. Instead, in the early 1970s, a rigorous course of instruction and training began.
When Creme was ready, if not entirely eager, to fulfill the responsibility for which he had trained most of his life, he still had serious misgivings about taking his message to the public. He said, "I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I liked what I was doing. I liked working quietly, esoterically, knowing I was doing something useful, but neither too strenuous nor making too great psychological demands on me." He adds, "It is an enormous and embarrassing claim to have to make, that the Christ is giving messages through oneself."
Yet, by the time I met Benjamin Creme in 1980, there was no sign of embarrassment or discomfort. Then, as now, he was quite matter-of-fact when discussing his work, whether speaking to hundreds in a large auditorium or relaxed at a family dinner table. Over the years, he has always been the same, extremely intelligent, immensely kind, modest and witty, and completely dedicated to his work.
The book's introduction, which outlines what he calls the New Age of Synthesis, is based on a paper Creme gave at a 1977 educational conference, and it remains entirely relevant in 2013. It is a crystal-clear analysis of the emergence and its purpose, and it is remarkable for its consistency with events as they have unfolded over the ensuing 36 years.
A fitting prelude to the idea of a world teacher in our midst, the introduction argues for new approaches to reality and the values which should govern our lives, culminating in a more just and rational society worldwide. Additionally, the introduction is a useful summary for people who know the history of the emergence but have forgotten some of the details.
To the most recent edition, Mr. Creme adds an update which includes the most significant developments connected with Maitreya's emergence between 1977 and 2007.
Creme acknowledges at the beginning of the book that he makes various prophetic statements which are, by their nature, impossible of immediate proof. The statements may have been impossible to prove in 1977, but a quick review of ongoing world events since then renders them remarkable in their accuracy.
At this writing, the news is proving the point. Previously inviolable, powerful international banking and financial institutions are increasingly revealed as corrupt as they lose their traditional status and power. Ultimately, Creme observes, the need for change will become so overwhelmingly obvious that the most privileged among us will find themselves increasingly powerless to stop the momentum.
Readers in 2013 may not be surprised to learn of Creme's further prediction. International banking and financial institutions will prove to be among the last to accept the fact that a complete change in the world's financial and economic order is imperative. In 1980, when Benjamin Creme spoke of these future developments during a casual conversation, I responded, "That can't possibly happen." He calmly said, "Wait and see."
From the beginning of his work, Creme was asked to introduce to the world a new science of meditation, transmission meditation, a meditation for the New Age. Throughout his worldwide travels, making known information about the emergence, this meditation has been of central importance, and today transmission meditation groups exist in large numbers throughout the world.
The brief chapter titled The Great Invocation, which is used in this group meditation, discusses the invocation's purpose, the ways in which it can be used, and its impact on the world. The chapter also provides visualizations which animate each of the invocation's phrases and offers guidance to those who wish to form a telepathic conduit between yourselves and hierarchy.
Mr. Creme explains, through that conduit, the energies thus invoked can flow. There is nothing better you can do for the world or yourselves than channel these great spiritual potencies.
The longest section of the book is composed of audience questions and Creme's responses, largely drawn from meetings at Friend's house in London in the late 1970s. They provide a snapshot of the period leading up to 1979 to 1980, when the world experienced tectonic power shifts politically, economically and technologically.
Little noted at the time, these shifts began to build themselves into a series of quiet but significant revolutions. In ways barely registered, small sectors in our society reconfigured themselves, nibbling away at the carefully guarded and elaborately maintained power structures that had been in place for centuries.
These infant transformations were soon followed by a rise in political activism and social entrepreneurship, little noticed at the time, but now woven into the fabric of our daily lives throughout the world.
In the 1970s, the world was, as it had been for centuries, organised into many small hierarchies, mostly operating under the aegis of government, business and family. In communications, people worldwide depended upon utilities such as telegraph and landline telephones, as well as government postal services for communication. In many remote places, news still travelled by foot.
Now the whole world knows almost instantly when a disaster or an attack strikes, no matter how remote the location. We learn news directly from those most affected, as millions of us are instantly in touch, fostering a far more participatory culture and fertile information environment than mankind has experienced before. These changes should tell us, if nothing else, that something remarkable is afoot.
At the conclusion of the Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom are 12 messages given by Maitreya between 1977 and 1979. On the 18th of April 1978, Maitreya offers a very simple recipe for hope. Quote, "The problems of mankind can be solved. Through the process of sharing and just redistribution, the needs of all can be met." Sounds impossible? Wait and see.
You're listening to the World Teacher Program on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. And now for an article by Mr. Creme's master titled The Master's Role. This article featured in the April 2013 issue of Share International magazine and begins.
For many years, we, the Masters, have been preparing ourselves for the time of emergence, the time now near when we will, in group formation, live openly in the everyday world. For some it will be an experience altogether new. Many, as Masters, have spent all their time within the hierarchy and must now learn to work in entirely new ways. Even the use of speech has to be learned and practiced, since telepathy has long been the mode used by us.
At first, and for some considerable time, our contact will have to be restricted to senior disciples in the various fields of work and to trained personnel involved in the practical fields of administration, especially in food distribution. Many Masters are specialists in administration, while others engage more readily in teaching. The aim is to work as closely as possible in every field and as soon as possible with the general public. It is important to emphasize that the Master's aim is to stimulate and guide humanity as needed, but to safeguard the essential free will of men.
Gradually, the location of the various mystery schools, preparatory and advanced, will become known, and many thousands of striving disciples will gravitate to them. There they will receive the training for the first 2 initiations and enter the sanctuary of hierarchy.
In the beginning, we must expect some opposition to the Master's presence and ideas. But eventually, even the most die-hard fundamentalist of any religion or creed will find it difficult to fault the harmlessness of man's elder brothers.
In due course, the cities of the world will be beautified and transformed. The new science of light will transform industry and travel, and the movement of people will bring unity to the world. People of all nations will work and team together in service to all. The advice of the masters will be available, guiding men wisely with a gentle hand.
The presence of even a few masters among them will have an electrifying effect on thousands of people, anxious to serve the needs of the world, and the idea of service will become a new aim for many. In this way it can be seen that an enormous transformation can be accomplished in a relatively very short period of time.
A mass program of aid to the poor will achieve miracles in countries in Africa and South America, for example. An altogether new sense of the need for haste to rectify the wrongs of the past will ensure an intensity of help unknown today. Inspired by Maitreya and his group, hundreds of thousands of men and women will find their vocation in this way.
We, the masters, aim only to teach and guide, to show the way for men and protect them from harm. War in all its forms must become a thing of the past, but the decision to make it so must be man's alone. I repeat, our task is to show the way, to outline the plans, but men alone must embrace each step of the way. Have no fear, all will be achieved. The life ahead for men could not be more bright.
This next article, again by Benjamin Creme's master, first featured in Share International magazine in November 2006. It's titled The First Steps, and begins.
When Maitreya appears before the world, people will realize that they have known him from before, and that his teaching is not strange or beyond their level of thought. Simple indeed will he be that all may understand.
Precisely his simplicity will astound. Nevertheless, it will be found also that most people will experience what they hear in a new way, as a dawning truth, new and touching them at a deeper level. Simple the ideas may be, but they will resonate in people's hearts and feel fresh and vibrant. Thus will it be. Thus will Maitreya touch the hearts of men, appealing to them to aid themselves by aiding their brothers and sisters across the world.
When men hear him, they will ponder deeply on what he says, and feel strangely moved by the oft-heard words. Their hearts will respond as hitherto they have not, and a new understanding and urgency will potentize their response.
Thus will Maitreya galvanize the peoples of the world to action and change. Those who have stood back will come forward and join the clamour for justice and sharing, freedom and peace. Many, of course, will ignore Maitreya. Many will find his ideas abhorrent and dangerous, or utopian and impossible of accomplishment. Some, more sinister and afraid, will see in him the Antichrist, the embodiment of all their fears. Some would have him crucified forthwith, had they the power. Many will sit quietly on the fence, unable to take a stand for or against.
Those who can respond will grow in number and raise their voices for sharing and justice. They will gather round and support him and see him as their leader and mentor, teacher and guide.
Thus will form a powerful mass of world public opinion calling for change. More and more, governments will find it difficult to resist these demands of the people and will be forced to implement some degree of change. The people will grow in power, and their voices, potentized by Maitreya, will grow in strength and clarity of demand. They will call for their spokesman to speak to the world, and the stage will be set for the day of declaration, the first day of the new dawn.
The day of declaration, on which for the first time Maitreya will acknowledge his true stature and name, will stand out throughout history as the turning point in the evolution of mankind. It will be inscribed in the annals as the Day of Days, the beginning of the new sanctification of mankind, the portal to the glorious future which awaits humanity. That day is not far off.
We will finish with an extract from Maitreya's message number 79 as spoken through Benjamin Creme.
When you see me, you will know that the time for action has come. For I count on you, my friends, to act in implementing my plan. For many of you, this is an old and well-known mode of life. You are servers come to serve your brothers. It is as such that I shall call on you, and I value highly your help. Without that willing help, my mission would be a burden indeed. Now that I am among you, I have discovered even more keenly that mankind is ready to share. Within all those who hear me, I see the burning light of justice and truth. I voice simply their desire, and thus evoke that truth. So will it be with you, my friends. For even as I speak, I see shining within you this divine light. Let it shine brightly forth, my dear friends, and show the way for your brothers. My coming is not without problems, for I do engender in all I meet a sense of a new and mysterious future. This causes many to fear, but without cause, my friends. All should know that the future for all men through my presence is bright indeed. A new and wholesome brotherhood will flourish among men, and the justice of God shall be found arrayed in the glory of God. I come to teach you this. I come to show you the way. My friends, I count on you.
And that's our program for today. If you have any questions or would like to know more about the world teacher Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, please visit the website share-international.org, where you'll find more information on the various aspects of the Emergence.
To inquire about books by Benjamin Creme or our monthly free of charge newsletter, which contains extracts from previous Share International magazines, the number is 027 426 2018. That number again is 027 426 2018.
Thank you for listening to us on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. And please tune in to our next World Teacher program on Saturday the 14th of March at the usual time of 10 a.m.
You can listen again to this program and previous ones by visiting share-international-nz.info and click on the radio tab.